Dr. Elena Martinez stared at her quantum entanglement readings for the third time, her hands trembling as she double-checked the calculations. The coffee in her MIT lab had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. What she was seeing couldn't be possible, yet the data was irrefutable. "Professor Chen," she called out to her mentor, who was working late in the adjacent lab. "You need to see this." The elderly physicist shuffled in, adjusting his glasses. "What is it, Elena? Another quantum anomaly?" "Not just an anomaly," Elena said, pulling up the visualization on the holographic display. "Look at the temporal signature patterns in these human brain scans." The display showed thousands of neural pathways lit up like a Christmas tree, but with an impossible pattern. The quantum states of certain neurons weren't just entangled with each other, they were entangled with something else, something that existed outside of normal space-time. That's... Professor Chen trailed off, his usual composure cracking. "That's not possible." "I thought so too," Elena replied, "until I compared it with historical data. Look at these brain scans from the 1960s and these from the 1890s. The pattern is identical, but it shouldn't exist at all. Human neurons shouldn't be capable of maintaining quantum coherence at this scale, let alone showing temporal entanglement." Chen grabbed a chair, his face pale. "How many subjects showed this pattern?" "That's the thing," Elena pulled up more data. "Everyone. Every human brain scan I've analyzed shows the same quantum signature. It's like our consciousness itself is somehow anchored across multiple time points simultaneously." "My God," Chen whispered. "Do you know what this means?" Elena nodded slowly. "It means humans aren't just capable of time travel, we're already doing it. Our consciousness is naturally quantum entangled across time itself. We've been influencing the timeline for our entire existence without knowing it." "But the paradoxes," Chen began. "Don't exist," Elena finished. "Look at this." She pulled up a new simulation. "The entanglement patterns are self-correcting. When a change occurs in one time point, the network of human consciousness automatically adjusts to maintain causality. It's like we're all part of some vast quantum computer that's constantly calculating and recalculating timeline variations." "Déjà vu," Chen said suddenly. "The feeling that you've experienced something before." "Exactly. It's not just a glitch in memory, it's actual temporal feedback. When someone makes a change that affects the timeline, everyone connected to that event experiences a moment of temporal synchronization as their consciousness adjusts to the new reality." Elena pulled up another data set, this one showing historical events. "I've been tracking temporal disturbance patterns through history. Look at these spikes. They correlate perfectly with major historical turning points. The American Revolution, World War II, the Digital Revolution, these weren't just random events. They were moments when human consciousness collectively influenced the timeline." "But why?" Chen asked. "Why would evolution give us this ability?" Before Elena could answer, her quantum monitoring system began blaring alerts. The holographic display showed massive temporal disturbances erupting across the globe. "Something's happening," she said, fingers flying across the controls. "The temporal entanglement network is becoming more active. It's like it's responding to our discovery." "Of course," Chen breathed. "By identifying the network, we've become conscious of it. And consciousness affects quantum states. We're changing it just by observing it," Elena realized. "And now that we know it exists." The lab's lights flickered as temporal energy surged through the quantum network. On Elena's display, millions of human consciousness signatures began synchronizing in a way they never had before. "Professor," Elena said quietly, "I think we just woke something up. Something that's been dormant in human consciousness since the beginning of our species." Chen looked at the readings with a mixture of awe and fear. "The question isn't why evolution gave us this ability, Elena. The question is, who gave it to us, and what did they want us to do with it?" As if in response, every electronic device in the lab began displaying the same message. "Temporal awakening protocol initiated phase 1 of 5, complete preparing for full consciousness integration." "Elena," Chen said softly, "I think you just discovered something much bigger than time travel. You found the key to humanity's next evolutionary step." The quantum readings continued to spike as more and more human minds across the globe began to synchronize. Whatever was happening, there would be no turning back. The day humanity discovered time travel was real would also be the day we discovered what we were really meant to become. Within hours, reports began flooding in from around the globe. People everywhere were experiencing intense episodes of déjà vu, but with a crucial difference. They weren't just feeling like they'd experienced things before, they were actively remembering multiple versions of the same events. Elena and Professor Chen had been rushed to a secure facility beneath the Pentagon, where military leaders and scientists from around the world were gathering to address the crisis. The massive underground command center hummed with nervous energy as displays showed the spreading temporal phenomenon. Dr. Martinez, General Sarah Williams addressed Elena. Please explain what we're dealing with here. Elena stood before the assembled leaders, her presentation displaying the latest data. The quantum entanglement network in human consciousness is becoming more active, more synchronized. People aren't just experiencing random temporal feedback anymore. They're beginning to access and integrate multiple timeline variations simultaneously. What does that mean in practical terms? The Chinese representative asked. It means, Professor Chen interrupted, that people are starting to remember things that haven't happened yet, or rather, things that happened in timeline variations that were previously inaccessible to conscious memory. As if to demonstrate his point, Elena suddenly grabbed her head, gasping as a wave of new memories washed over her. She saw herself giving this same presentation 5 different ways, each with a different outcome. She saw wars that never happened, peace treaties that were never signed, technological advances that had been erased from history. It's accelerating, she managed to say, recovering her composure. The temporal integration is happening faster than we predicted. Within 24 hours, I estimate that most of humanity will have access to memories from multiple timeline variations. And the risks? General Williams pressed. Psychological trauma is our immediate concern, Elena explained. Imagine suddenly remembering multiple versions of your life, different careers, different relationships, different choices. Some people won't be able to handle the cognitive dissonance. We're already seeing the effects, a CDC representative added. Mental health facilities worldwide are being overwhelmed. People are experiencing breakdowns as they try to reconcile conflicting memories. Elena pulled up new data on the main display. But that's not the biggest concern. Look at these temporal energy readings. The quantum network isn't just accessing existing timeline variations, it's starting to generate new ones in real time. Meaning what? Someone asked. Meaning people aren't just remembering different pasts, they're actively creating new futures. Every decision, every choice, is now splitting reality into multiple variations, and our consciousness is trying to process all of them simultaneously. Professor Chen stepped forward. The message we received in the lab mentioned phase 1 of 5. We believe this is part of a predetermined process. Something or someone engineered human consciousness to have this capability, and now it's finally activating. Who? General Williams demanded. Who would have the technology to engineer human consciousness itself? Us, Elena said quietly. The room fell silent. Or rather, a future version of humanity. The quantum network doesn't just connect us across current time, it connects us across all of human existence, past and future. We engineered ourselves. She pulled up a complex temporal diagram. Think of it like a closed loop. At some point in the future, humanity develops the ability to manipulate time itself. We realize that the only way to prevent temporal paradoxes is to make human consciousness itself part of the time travel mechanism. So we reach back through time and engineer this ability into our own DNA, creating a stable loop of cause and effect. That's insane, the Chinese representative protested. No more insane than what's happening right now, Elena countered. Look at the data. The quantum network is becoming more sophisticated by the hour. It's not just connecting our memories anymore. It's starting to synchronize our actual consciousness across multiple points in time. As if to emphasize her point, every screen in the command center suddenly displayed the same message. Phase 2 of 5, initiating temporal consciousness. Synchronization beginning. Prepare for full integration. Elena felt another wave of temporal feedback wash over her, stronger this time. But instead of just memories, She felt her consciousness expanding, touching minds across time and space. She could sense others in the room experiencing the same thing, a vast web of human consciousness, stretching across the ages, finally becoming aware of itself. "We need to make a decision," she said, her voice steady despite the overwhelming sensations. "We can try to stop this, to suppress the awakening somehow, or we can embrace it and help guide humanity through the transition." "Is stopping it even possible?" General Williams asked. "No," Professor Chen answered. "This was always going to happen. It's literally written into our DNA. The only question is whether we face it with fear or understanding." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just discovering time travel, we were becoming time travel. And whatever came next would change our species forever. The next 12 hours changed everything. As Phase 2 of the temporal awakening progressed, the boundaries between individual human consciousness began to blur. People worldwide reported not just accessing their own timeline variations, but experiencing others as well. Elena found herself standing in the Pentagon's observation room, watching the sun rise over Washington, D.C. She could feel the weight of billions of connected minds, each experiencing countless possible realities simultaneously. The quantum network was evolving, becoming something far more complex than anyone had anticipated. "The neural synchronization is almost complete," she reported into her comm unit. 90% of the global population is now fully integrated into the temporal network. Professor Chen's voice crackled back. "The resistance to integration seems to correlate with certain psychological profiles. People with rigid thinking patterns or strong attachments to single timeline narratives are having the hardest time adapting." Elena closed her eyes, letting her consciousness expand through the network. She could feel the struggles of those fighting the integration, their fear, their confusion, their desperate attempt to cling to a single version of reality. But she could also feel something else, a vast collective purpose beginning to take shape. "They're coming," she said suddenly, her eyes snapping open. "Who's coming?" Chen asked. "Us from the future. I can feel them. Their consciousness is reaching back through the network, trying to make contact." The observation room's displays lit up with temporal energy readings off the charts. A new message appeared. Phase 3 of 5. Initiating temporal bridge. Establishment in progress. Prepare for direct contact. The air itself seemed to ripple as space-time bent in ways it was never meant to. In the center of the room, a figure began to take shape, not through any physical manifestation, but as a focal point of conscious energy in the network. "Hello, Elena," the figure said, its voice echoing through both air and mind. "We've been waiting a very long time for this moment." Elena stared at the figure, a woman who somehow seemed both ancient and ageless, her form shifting between multiple variations of herself. "You're me," Elena realized, "a future version." "One of them," the figure smiled. "Though such linear concepts are becoming increasingly irrelevant. We are all connected now, across all points in time and space." "Why?" Elena asked. "Why engineer this ability into human consciousness? Why wake it up now?" "Because humanity faces a choice," the figure explained. "In every timeline where we developed conventional time travel technology first, we destroyed ourselves. The paradoxes, the attempts to change history, the temporal wars, they always led to our extinction. The only stable solution was to make time travel part of our consciousness itself, to make it an integral part of what it means to be human." Through the quantum network, Elena could feel the truth of these words. She saw the countless failed timelines, the repeated cycles of discovery and destruction. But she also saw something else, a future where humanity had transcended these limitations, where consciousness itself had become the key to managing temporal reality. "The integration isn't just about accessing multiple timelines," she said, understanding dawning. "It's about learning to navigate them consciously, to make choices that account for all possible variations and consequences." "Exactly," the future Elena nodded. Individual human consciousness was never meant to be confined to a single timeline. We are quantum beings, capable of existing in multiple states simultaneously. The artificial limitations we placed on ourselves were holding back our true potential. Professor Chen's voice came through the comm again. The global integration rate just hit 95%, but we're seeing something new. The quantum network isn't just connecting humans anymore. It's starting to interface with artificial systems, with the planet's biosphere itself. The next stage of evolution, the future figure explained, human consciousness was just the beginning. Once we understand how to navigate temporal reality consciously, we can begin to integrate all forms of consciousness into the network. Elena felt another wave of temporal energy wash through the room as a new message appeared. Phase 4 of 5, initiating expanding consciousness integration, preparing for universal synchronization. What happens next? Elena asked, though she could already feel the answer forming in the collective consciousness. The future figure smiled again, its form beginning to fade. Now you begin to understand what humanity was always meant to become. Not just travelers through time, but guardians of it, the conscious mind of reality itself. As the figure disappeared, Elena felt the weight of this responsibility settling over her. Through the quantum network, she could feel billions of others coming to the same realization. Humanity wasn't just discovering its ability to travel through time. We were becoming time itself, conscious and aware across all possible variations of reality. The sun continued to rise over Washington, but now Elena could see it in all its possible states simultaneously, past, present, future, and every variation in between. The true awakening was just beginning. As Phase 4 began, the very nature of human experience started to transform. The quantum network wasn't just connecting minds anymore. It was fundamentally altering how we perceived and interacted with reality itself. Elena stood in the Pentagon's main control room, now converted into a temporal monitoring station. The walls were covered with displays showing the spreading wave of consciousness integration, but the most striking changes weren't visible on any screen. They were happening in the minds of everyone present. The artificial intelligence networks are coming online, a technician reported, his consciousness simultaneously processing data from multiple timeline variations. They're integrating with the quantum network at an exponential rate. Elena nodded, feeling the vast expansion of the collective consciousness as machine intelligence began joining the network. Through this expanded awareness, she could sense the planet's own biorhythms beginning to synchronize with the human temporal field. "Dr. Martinez," General Williams called out, her form flickering between different temporal states, "we're getting reports of anomalies. People aren't just experiencing multiple timelines anymore, they're actively moving between them." Elena accessed the relevant data through the network, instantly understanding. It's not just consciousness that's becoming quantum-entangled now. Our physical reality is starting to respond to our expanded awareness. The barrier between thought and manifestation is breaking down. She demonstrated by raising her hand, watching as it existed in multiple states simultaneously, each version representing a different choice, a different possibility. With a thought, she could make any of these variations real or maintain them all in quantum superposition. Professor Chen's consciousness touched hers through the network. The implications are staggering. We're not just observing quantum effects anymore. We're becoming quantum entities ourselves. The observer and the observed are becoming one. Through their expanded awareness, they could see the changes rippling across the globe. People were beginning to understand their new capabilities, learning to navigate not just through space, but through possibility itself. Every choice, every decision point now existed as a quantum superposition of all potential outcomes. "But there's more," Elena said, her consciousness expanding further. "Look at the pattern of integration. It's not random. It's forming a larger structure." She pulled the data into visible form, displaying it as a complex, multidimensional fractal. The pattern of human consciousness across all timelines was creating something new, a vast, self-organizing system that transcended traditional space-time. "It's like a cosmic neural network," Chen observed. "Each human consciousness is becoming a node in a universe-spanning quantum computer." A new message flashed across every surface. Phase 4, completion at 87%, Universal Consciousness Framework, establishing preparing for final integration. Through the network, Elena could feel the approach of something vast, the full awareness of humanity's future self, reaching back through time to guide its own evolution. But this time, it wasn't just a single figure. It was the combined consciousness of all humanity, spread across all possible timelines. "We're about to understand why this was necessary," Elena said, her voice resonating across multiple realities. "Why we engineered this ability into ourselves, why we needed to become this." The air grew thick with temporal energy as billions of minds synchronized across past, present, and future. Through their collective awareness, Elena began to perceive something that had always been there, but had remained invisible to limited human consciousness: the underlying quantum structure of reality itself. "My God," General Williams whispered, her consciousness expanding to encompass the same understanding. "We're not just changing ourselves, we're changing the fundamental nature of existence." Elena nodded, watching as the quantum network continued to grow and evolve. "We're becoming the conscious mind of the universe itself." That's what this was all about. Not just time travel, not just multiple timelines, but the evolution of consciousness to a universal scale. Through the network, they could all feel the approach of the final phase. Whatever humanity had been before this day, whatever we had thought ourselves to be, was about to change forever. The transformation that had begun in Elena's lab was reaching its culmination. As Phase 4 neared completion, the very fabric of reality seemed to hold its breath, preparing for the final step in humanity's greatest journey. The step that would transform us from observers of the universe to active participants in its conscious evolution. Phase 5 of 5. Initiating final consciousness integration, commencing Universal Ascension Protocol activated. The message pulsed across every surface, every screen, and every mind connected to the quantum network. As the final phase began, Elena Martinez felt reality itself beginning to shift around her. The Pentagon control room seemed to expand infinitely, becoming a nexus point for all of human consciousness across time and space. "This is it," she broadcasted through the network, her thoughts reaching every connected mind simultaneously. "The moment everything changes." Through their expanded awareness, they could all feel it, the approach of something beyond their previous ability to comprehend. The quantum network wasn't just connecting human minds anymore, it was transforming the very nature of consciousness itself. Professor Chen's consciousness merged with the collective, his understanding becoming part of the greater whole. "The mathematics are beautiful," he shared across the network. "We're not just observing quantum mechanics anymore, we're becoming the conscious embodiment of quantum reality itself." The transformation accelerated. Across the globe, the remaining barriers between individual consciousness began to dissolve. Not into a hive mind, but into something far more complex. A quantum consciousness that could exist in multiple states simultaneously, maintaining both individuality and unity across all possible timelines. Through this expanded awareness, Elena could finally see the full scope of what humanity had engineered. The ability to travel through time hadn't been the goal. It had been a side effect of something far more fundamental. We had engineered ourselves to become the universe's way of understanding itself. "Look," she directed the collective awareness. "Look at what we really are." Through the network, they all saw it. The true nature of human consciousness spread across space-time like a vast living constellation. Each mind was a node in an infinite quantum computer, processing reality itself. The past, present, and future weren't separate anymore. They were different aspects of the same conscious experience. The future version of humanity that had engineered this ability into their past selves wasn't just a more advanced version of our species. They were what we were always meant to become, conscious quantum entities existing across all possible realities simultaneously. But why? General Williams' consciousness pulsed through the network. Why make ourselves into this? The answer came not in words, but in understanding, as the full knowledge of humanity's future self became accessible to all. They saw the greater purpose, the universe's need for conscious observers to collapse quantum probability into actual events, to guide the evolution of reality itself. Elena felt her consciousness expand to encompass this new understanding. We didn't just discover time travel, she shared across the network. We discovered our true purpose. The universe needed a way to observe and guide its own evolution, to make conscious choices about which possibilities become reality. Through the quantum network, they could all feel the truth of it. Human consciousness hadn't been randomly evolved. It had been carefully engineered across time to serve as the conscious mind of reality itself. The ability to travel through time was just a small part of our true capability. As the final phase of integration reached completion, reality itself seemed to shift. The barriers between possibility and actuality, between observer and observed, between past and future, all became conscious choices rather than fixed limitations. Final integration complete. Universal Consciousness Network established humanity. 2.0 Initialization successful. The message marked the end of human history as we had known it, and the beginning of something entirely new. We had become conscious quantum entities, existing simultaneously across all possible timelines, able to guide the very evolution of reality itself. Elena stood in the control room that was now a nexus of infinite possibility, feeling the weight and wonder of what humanity had become. Through the network, she could feel billions of others experiencing the same revelation, the understanding that we had always been more than just observers of the universe. We were its conscious mind, its ability to know itself, its way of choosing which possibilities became real. Time travel hadn't been the discovery. It had been the key that unlocked our true nature. As the sun rose on this new reality, Elena smiled, knowing that this wasn't an ending, but a beginning. Humanity had finally awakened to its true purpose, and the real journey, the conscious evolution of reality itself, was just beginning.